So, hello and welcome everyone. I'm Insane, and this is a deep take into my newest track, Älä Mee, or Don't Go in English. First of all, this is going to be a long one, so you might want to get a drink and some biscuits or something, and sit back and relax and fall asleep while listening to my bland voice. So, the way I'm going to go with this is to go through the creation process of the song. So I'm going to go through the patterns, and then once we hit some interesting parts, we're going to dig deeper in those. Hopefully this helps some of you. First thing you'll notice is that my songs are a mess. I don't really keep them organized. You can also see it with my effect track. I did try to make it like some professionals do, that everything is on one track and and all of the mixer things are correctly, but it kind of breaks my flow, so I kept on with my nasty flow. So let's get going. So how did I start the track? It's pretty much how I guess almost everyone will. So I chose a kick, and then I went on for the bass. There are a couple of different ways I will start. Sometimes it's the bass, sometimes it's the chord, sometimes it's the lead. This time I went with the bass, which is this. Now, the interesting part about this is that it's actually Alan Aztec's Donk Machine 2. This is strange one because normally I do Serum or Spire for my bass sounds. This time though I found out before starting the track that wow, a second version of Donk Machine has come out. So I wanted to try it out, and turns out it actually works with normal bass sounds too. The biggest part with making bass with Donk Machine is that you might think that it's always going to be donk 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 sound, but no, it works like this. So what you have to work with is making a good stuff with the mod part and the decay and sustain and do. So once you have those, over here it's probably, I can't remember, I'm afraid to change this at this point, but this way the sound works is it's controlled with these, so it kind of doesn't do the donk, but it actually fades in, especially when it's low enough. And also what you can see here is that there's another Alan Aztec donk, which is pretty much the same. It's just some of the distortion is taken away and it's cut lower. And also what is done is that I have, as you can see in here, we have a second kick which is actually muted. It's used to, when we go to my mixer, this is what I use as my side chainer. I don't want to use my main kick because sometimes in the track you might have, so that you don't have the kicks playing, but you do have the bass or some other parts you want to sidechain, so it's better to have a different sound for the sidechainer. But, well, it's also smart to have the same sound, so it actually works with the kick. And how it's done is that I have, well, first thing you'll notice that the notes are a bit shorter than half beat, so you have a bit of breathing time, which allows the fading to come a bit earlier, which makes all of the sounds come just a little bit earlier, so it kind of makes this faster feeling. If we actually compare this, so you can hear that the low bass is working down there, but then this is also done because this kind of glues the kick and bass together when you have the slower bass. It's It's very subtle, but it kind of, again, trust me, it just kind of works. But you don't want to have, especially in this case, you don't want to have the main bass on the sub part also, because it is such a noticeable sound that if we had it and the second, I mean the lower part, it kind of would make the same kind of twang, 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 twang sound. So instead I did a cut version of the same sound. So after these two came the short chords. The short chord is a basic supersaw made with serum this time, and normally I do them with Spire, but this time it didn't need to be that huge, so I went with this. Serum also kind of sounds better when you have this kind of baelish sounds, so I instead went with that. After these came the main lead, because this was pretty much the loop I used as the bass for everything, and you can also see that it's going through the whole song. So what I did after all of that, I turned on my recording mode, took my MIDI keyboard and started playing. First I came with, I mean I had kind of a note melody line in my mind, which I then started playing with the keyboard and changing it around. This is actually the very first one that I came up with. So yeah, that is the important part, because the rest is kind of, I wasn't sure what to do with that, so I just wanted these first notes in. So the second one is pretty much the same. So again, you can kind of hear what I'm going for. And also you can hear the vibe that I'm going for. So then came the one that has all of the lead parts that I used in the song. Well, pretty much, obviously they're tweaked afterwards. And we actually want to take this off. That is the verse. This is the second main part, you know, the kind of after chorus part. But you can hear here that it's changed quite a bit. This is a failed one. This is something that I thought maybe, since we have the main chorus that is going to come later, that maybe we had this kind of high end that I have in some of my other songs. But since we found the main thing later, this is a failed one. But here we go. Now, unfortunately, I did edit this one on top of the original, so it didn't sound quite like this, but mainly it did. There we go. The rest is failed. Let's see actually this one. Yeah, it's failed. But as you can see, I kind of immediately when I did this, I felt that yeah, this is good. But then I still wanted to give it a couple more tries just in case. But what is important about this is that, again, the start is pretty much the same as I kind of played with the keyboard. But this part is, oh, I mean, 100% handmade. Because, well, you might have heard this if you have followed me from 2012. This was something that was in a Japanese song, and I thought maybe 6 years is a good or long enough time to prep it for myself. Well, actually, yeah, these notes are kind of the same. Then I did my own thing with it. Oh, that is still so great. And then, well, once you have those, it's so easy to just, well, let's pull it one octave higher. Yeah, but then we change these. And again, well, let's actually back off a little bit. So, this is then the verse. As you can see, it kind of goes high, but since it is the verse that where I was going to use it, I thought that it didn't really need to go that high. So instead, if you compare it to the stuff in the background, this is the one that was going to pretty much be the verse, which is like it goes down, 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 and then we go up. Because it kind of makes this more story kind of feel for it. And also, as you can hear in the background, this is kind of flat in the end because it kind of just goes through 2 or 3 notes, while this goes like, woo, let's go through and around the whole octave, however you say it. Anyway, it also then did have some tweaks, which are here. Which you can see here is that I did these fast and a couple notes higher sounds. That is to kind of emphasize some of the notes that I want. And then when I don't want to do it, I just don't do it, or then I slide it up or down. Here I didn't want to do it because these kind of were strong enough. But then kind of some of this I did want to emphasize. Here is also something that it's actually not one note, but it's just a minor cut in there, which you maybe won't notice at the first time, but at some point you will, which is kind of just a slight sound in there. And then there are some slides to make some notes interesting. So, I guess then it's for the big part, which is the lead sound itself. Now, let's blow your mind. It's done with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different synths. I'm going to take the second because this goes down. This is kind of what I want more. I like more. This is also something that I really wanted because again, there was this part, which is amazing, and then, which again is, this is something I'm super happy about, because it's like amazingness in 5 bars, which is like this part. This is again this. Oh, that's so great. And then the reply to it. And then the second reply. Which is like, oh, that 1 octave, that's just so great. And then we go to this, because once again, this was from the Japanese song. You don't really hear it that many times. So then I wanted to kind of do another kind of Japanese. This is, I don't remember where, but this kind of note structure you just have in some of those Japanese, maybe 8-bit songs. And then when you have the slide, it's like, because if you don't have it, well, this is kind of bad because I have it in 2 parts. But yeah, it needs the slide, but when you have it, it's like, oh man. So that's why at least I really want to experiment with the notation. Okay, anyway, let's go to the scenes themselves. So Spire came pretty much last, so we will go to it last. What came first is Serum. This was the sound that I was trying to use, or maybe I had another Spire, but kind of similar sound. Well, yeah, actually, I did have a Spire first, but then I tried to replicate with Serum, but it kind of didn't work out. But this is the kind of lead sound I really like to use. You may have noticed is that it kind of starts flat, but then it starts to vibrate the longer it goes, and that is a simple LFO for the pitch. And something you will notice in pretty much all of them is that almost all of them are just one sound as unison. So, as in you don't really have it. Because once you start adding more unit or voices, you kind of start playing with phasing, which is nasty once you learn how bad it can be. This is something I unfortunately learned way too late in my music making career, maybe. One neat trick with this though, you won't be seeing with the Spire, but I very often use it. You have heard it in my previous songs. It's the sample hold in this one, which is pretty much the same as in Spire. In the Shaper, it's the beat and sample rate. Yes, so beat rate, sample rate. Sample rate is to kind of make it. No. While beat rate, it's not that noticeable here, but what it does is it kind of, well, you can imagine that when now you hear every sound it's 32 bits, but when you take it to 8 bits, it's kind of like how if it played through NAS or something. Anyway, let's go back. So what it does is it kind of, especially in this case, I have the cutoff, which is the sample rate. So it's all the way, or at least almost at the peak. It's not exactly. It's to kind of, well, you have to experiment with this yourself. But then the resonance is the beat rate, which kind of, once you pull it this high, it kind of changes the sound by adding some pretty neat grittiness to the top, and the drive also kind of exemplifies it. Then after that is a distortion and a hyper, which makes widening for the sound, which is kind of bad, but you'll see how I fix it later. And delay, compressor, reverb, and EQ. Then the EQ line, here's something that will repeat in many of these. Here we go. So an EQ which cuts low and off, and then whatever I want to do. Here I have a trick that I learned just before making this track, which is to have a multiband compressor, which has all of the compression bypassed and then the limiter on, which pretty much allows me to control the volume of different bands of the sound, so I can have more body at the bottom while keeping the mid at the same place. And then the one that I talked was about the fixing the phasing is the Polyverse Wider, which is free plugin. You might want to get it. As you can see in here, 100 is the kind of what you will get on average, but since the only sound that I want to be in the middle-ish is the Spire, which is going to be the lead sound, this is going way wider. And the neat thing about wider is that it fixes your phasing issues. Sometimes it won't sound good, but when you when you use it with the background sounds, it mostly doesn't matter. So it's amazing. Go get it. So the next sound was to give the body for the sound. These are pretty much, I don't remember. They were made before the effect line. Here we have a different way of making the movement, is to have an LFO, which is which controls the PWM Genesis wavetable, which is this kind of triangle thing. When you do this movement, it's again, it's slight, but it's wobbling there. And then we have a different kind of a comb filter, which kind of gives a metallic sound, but when you use it slightly, it makes everything amazing. Then this is a second kind of trick that I use very often, is to have phaser before distortion. Especially with Spire, this is amazing. Normally, I actually don't have rate, but because I want the sound to kind of move, I did give it some rate. An important thing is to have phase off on 0 or either in 360, because if you have it somewhere else, you're going to have those phasing issues that you don't want. And the rest of the knobs you just go by your ear. But when you do this before the distortion, it kind of creates an amazing sound. With this one, you unfortunately won't hear it that loudly. But it kind of gives, it boosts some frequencies so strangely that it sounds amazing. And then when you distort it, you kind of squash it together. Then this is a next thing that is pretty common with serum tutorials, is to use the compressor with multiband on and then just pull the threshold as low as you want, and it kind of squashes the sound, making it the best house sound you want. Then the next is, this is going to sound horrible, alone. You have the plug. This is something I pretty often use these days, because it's to give it the sound some attack, and well, yeah, it's a nice plug sound. But when we go for it alone, you can notice that the other ones are mono and legato with some pitching, but this is not. That is because because it's block, it will just click here and then it fades out, so it won't play on every note. But what's going to happen is that it's really going to play all of the notes. So it does this, which sounds horrible alone. But when you have all of the other sounds, it kind of drowns out this. And it also makes that, what I talked about earlier, that it kind of makes this more noticeable. This kind of makes it more noticeable. There's again wider, and well, what else? The timeless, to make kind of, to move the sound a bit more on the background and also make it a bit wider. So the next sound is a preset. It's to add some growl to the low end. Yeah, you can do these kind of growls any way you want. There are many ways of doing it, but I thought that maybe this time I'd go for a preset, just in case. Once again, there's wider, but this time I went for less widening because it's a low sound, so you don't really want it to be everywhere around your head, but instead it's in the middle to give it that body there. So after these, I thought that no, this sound is just not big enough. I mean, it's simply too weak when we play it over here. It's kind of meh. So I went to my best friend Spire and came up with this. Now, this is interesting though. First of all, this is a preset that I used as a bass. However, it is changed quite heavily. What you can see is that it's again one voice for the main sound. There's going to be a bit difference in here. So it's a basic saw. The second one is a square made to give width to the sound. Hold on. Oh, I'm muted. I muted those. A nasty square, but when you have it with the main sound, it's not loud, but it's giving it some body. And then we have a chorus which kind of makes the sound itself. This is why I like Spire, because it kind of, you can get these massive sounds so easily with this. Then there's some delay and reverb, which actually, these are probably the biggest changes, was that the delay and reverb were huge, which you don't want with happy hardcore and fast music generally, because it will just make everything a mess. And then there's the most trusted thing of compressor, which squashes everything together and sounds great. But again, this sound as a bass was pretty weak. So you can notice it's kind of flat. So once again, what I did was to add the ego, which is again cutting the low end. Then the second one does the same, and then the fast distortion in the beat in the middle, which kind of adds way more body for the sound. It already makes it bigger. Then in the main effect line that kind of has all of the other ones together, it has, if we take all of them away to go one by one. Now, the EQs were probably done before this synth, and the exciter probably was also done before that, but you get the point. Is that I kind of started shaping the sound to the way I want it to sound. Let's give this. Now you can hear that it's kind of weak, so we add some EQs, which again got some lower sounds off while boosting the parts I want to be louder. Then I cut some of the top because they were kind of starting to get a bit nasty, so I took them off, but instead I added a different exciter which boosts the high sounds and makes them, it kind of gives this hiss sound at the top. Okay, then there's the compressor deesser, which is, it's a preset of, I guess it's medium analog. It's mostly to give this more body and make it louder. This is post effect, post effect, post effect. And that is to cut, control the sound, that's basic compressor, post effect, and then this is the side chainer. And then when we go here, you hear this limiter that is working. No, not limiter, timeless. Here, which is, you can notice that it's kind of making it way wider. That is amazing. But then I still thought that it's just quite not big enough. Kind of the width. So I added a silent, which alone is horrible. It's a nasty super saw. 7 voices, 7 voices, 7 voices. Here's a bit of a difference though, that it's pulse wave instead of saw. And distortion EQ, but again, alone it sounds horrible, but when we have it played in the background, it's kind of not noticeable too much, but it just works at the background to make just a little bit more of width. And here is again the fluid mode band, which I use to boost the low a bit, and then the wider, which widens the sound and makes it super wide. So as a basic rule, for the main lead, you really don't want to use just one. If you can make it that good, then yeah, sure. But I rarely have, these days you just have so much of computer power that it's easier to make it from multiple parts and kind of mangle the sound into just the kind of shape you want, instead of trying to go with just one synth and wishing that it works out. Obviously, your case may vary, as you can actually hear when we go to the next part. And the next part is the support lead, which comes at the second climax, because the first one is just the main part, but then in the second one you will get the square. Yeah, because the square is one synth and it's a it's a pretty basic sound. It's a sample, not a preset, because, well, I sometimes do, most of the time I do them myself, but this time I thought, no, let's trust someone else. But there are a few changes in the effects. Hold on. Kind of to make it fit. Which is, again, take the lows off. I took even more this time because it kind of didn't have to have them. I took some of the presence away, because again it's not supposed to be the main sound. Then make it super wide. And yeah, once you have those, it was pretty much to, as you can see here, and this is also something that you might want to do, is to add the ghost notes, and then I put the main lead as the kick, and then the saw chord as clap, and then when I started doing the supporting lead, I kind of just started riding through the different notes. But there are a few differences. I mean, most of it goes by the same notes as the main lead, but then I added these kind of... These are fun little extras. This is also where you added the note and note, then here we kind of go low. And this also. It's kind of to make it to just bounce just a little bit from the background and kind of make it happier. That's, yeah. it's so strange because I wanted the sound to be kind of visual, that this is, while kind of being happy, and then we have the second support lead which is more playful. It's like, ooh yeah. Wow, I'm liking my own stuff way too much. Next game, So Bad, but that is pretty basic. The most important thing is that you want movement, so how I did it in this case is to have LFO, which works as symmetry of the the oscillator. As you can see, it's moving there. And then also I have a flanger and a phaser, which again makes some movement, and the hyper also does that. What else? Not much. Well, the EQ is probably important. Again, low snare cut off, but I also cut off the top because I don't want it to be in the front, and I wanted, the most important thing about this was to give body to the mid part, which is often missing from my songs. So I did it with this, but then once I kept going with the song, I thought that it was kind of getting too muddy, so I took it off and instead moved it to the low parts and also to the parts where I sing, just to add that kind of stuff in the middle. Oops, not that. This one. Yeah, and here you can also see the side chaining in rockers. Next is bells, which again I cheated a little. Normally I do them with serum, but now I was lazy, so I used autogun, which is pretty much a preset bank of, I guess it's Ogun. And yeah, I just went through them until I found something I liked, and then just the normal EQ to cut the lows away. So, next important part, and this is pretty important in these days, is that when you have the low, what is it? The non-climax part, is that you might not have much of bass going on there. Let's listen to this actually. Let's take all of them in except for the bass. Let's also take my scissors. Something is killing my processor right now. So yeah, there's not that much of bass, so what we want to do, let's also take that. So what you want to do is add the bass. Now, this is again a very basic sound in the end. The sound is two saws and a sub bass, which is sine wave, and There's a slight LFO curve for the pitch to add it just a bit more of attack, which then kind of gets taken away because of the attack here being a bit slower, but that doesn't matter. Then I also, this time I used a multiband compressor to kind of boost some of the sounds that I want. Well, or maybe not one, but anyway. But then I also did cut some of the lows off because they were too loud and it wasn't really fitting with the main bass. Which also brings me to the point that when I did notice that this sub bass and the main bass weren't really working together, I linked this the sub bass to the main bass. Then I took the ProGu, which has the EGU match, which I used to match the EGU profiles, but it kind of creates an invert, the difference of the two. So then I kind of flipped it around by selecting all of the notes and inverting the gain. And then I also made it way smaller because it's kind of extreme by default. This way I cut off some of the top sounds of the main bass while keeping the low end, so this kind of matched the two together, and it also made, in the long run, it made the main bass sound better this way. I also, in the main bass, I did the same multiband compressor thing, so this allowed me to boost the low end while keeping the mid and top at the same-ish level. But again, with the sub bass, what I did is here's the main lead. Well, it's cut now, but anyway, you get the point. So what I did is with the sub bass is that this is the same bass, kind of notation as the main bass, but instead it follows the lead. Some of the notes are cut more, just to emphasize some of the notes. So after these came this probably the biggest part in the end of the song, which was the vocals. As I said in the description of the video, I'm not a singer. My voice is not made for singing, but I wanted to have vocals, but it's kind of lame to kind of try to find fitting vocals, and then if they are copyrighted, it's kind of So I went for my own in the end. Unfortunately, in this project, I don't have the first singings, luckily. But what I did is pretty much I first wrote lyrics, and then I recorded singing 8 times for each part. I actually had, because now you hear verse 1 done twice, I did have verse 2, but I kind of thought maybe it's better to have just one that is kind of good enough. But yeah, what I did was first of all record the 8 parts, then I kind of went it through kind of phrase by phrase. So if we take here, so for here I might have cut like here, then choose a second part, which each one of those 8 had the best part for that, like there and stuff like that. I did it like that. Some do it like word by word, but oh no, that's way too much for me. And actually what I did was that since I have had 8 of them, I took 2 of the best ones. So I had two different vocal lines, which I panned a little bit to the left and the right, but that comes a bit later in the process. Because first, after I had two good vocal lines for the verse, for the chorus, for the second chorus, I rendered them, and then I actually went away from this main project, got the second one, where I used, if we go to the vocals, here we go, because I found out that FL Studio has new, oh, here we go, FL Studio has new tone, which is pretty much the same as Ceremony Melodyne or Anthra's Autotune, but it's very versatile. This is a huge, great machine. It's like you pull the vocal in, you do all of the stuff as you do in Ceremony Melodyne, but you can also kind of stretch the vocals note by note or word by word and make it just as you want. It's amazing. This is a great thing, especially since you can do this, which slaves it to the main part. So then I recorded the main leads and stuff like that, and then made the vocals match the toes, which was like, wow, this is fast. So after that, I had two vocal lines that at this point I panned them a little bit to the left and to the right, which you can see in here. For all of those, I had Vocal Rider Stereo, which kind of does an automated automation of the volume. I mean, fixes. It's kind of, yeah, it's meant to fix the volume level of the singing, so it kind of won't peak at some points or be too quiet. And here you can see the first, this is pretty much what that does. It's like, actually if we have it, yeah, this is actually a good part to have it. If you have it here, you can notice how it kind of starts following some of the notes, and then it cuts if it's too loud. So what I did was to record this line for all of the 6 different vocals, and then once I had those, I actually started going through them manually. So I started, if we take, I guess these, yes. So there were still some parts like, yeah, as in pa 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 pa, or some other starting voices that were starting to clip. So I cut them off. And then also if I wanted to boost some words or tails of the words, I then added some volume for those, just to make it, it's kind of the point of making the sound more professional. But this was huge. This took a lot of time, but I guess it paid off. And I guess I will be doing that in the future. Anyway, after the vocals, after that was done, that was tedious. So there's an EQ which cuts lows. Then there were some nasty frequencies that I decided to take away. This again cuts lows and also did some tweaking for the sound, because my voice is too bassy. No, it's not, but it kind of made it more balanced. This is now glitched. Speedyfish is used to remove some of the high S's. Then there's fruit limiter, which is made to squash the volume. Then another EQ, which is made to kind of boost what I want and cut what I don't want. Another limiter for the biggest sounds, and then brightness added, and a final limiter which cuts if there are still some peaks left. It's a long line, but it really works to make the sound better. So what I did next, because I did actually sing the song, the part, so that I tried to do one where I have the main sing, I have this, but then I also did a couple of takes where I tried to go an octave higher, but that didn't work at all. So instead, I once again got some help from FL Studio. So I sent the vocal to first of all a try track and then chorus track where I used a pitcher, which is again, this is pretty much like autotune if you use it like so you don't make the notation fixins yourself. But instead, hold on, sorry, you might not see it. Here we go. Okay, so here's pitcher. Normally it's used to fix your pitch, but instead what I did was to use it as a chorus machine by changing clicking to harmonize and octaves and actually MIDI. So everything clicked here, change it to format, and then, well, this is up to your taste. Essentially what's going on is this MIDI line, yes, where I kind of create some chorus lines which follow some of the super saw, the chord line, but it kind of also doesn't follow it. Instead it goes so it works better with actual singing. So I sent the MIDI in, which combines the actual vocals with pitcher, and then here we have one is going to middle, one is right, one left, and then the last one also in the middle. It replaces the sound, and we have a chorus. What I then did was to add another chorus, pretty chorus this time, to add just a little bit more of randomness to the sound. Then an ego to put it more to the background. And then again a wider with super high widening, so it kind of goes to the background. It also fixed some of the balancing of pitcher. Then I have a pretty balance here, which is just used to control the volume. So then I combined the two together, and these are pretty much post effects. Only is, well, there's a Valhalla room, which is just a slight effect to kind of glue the two vocals together, give it more kind of space. And then the timeless, which is again used to make it wider and kind of more exciting. And that is how you get the vocals. Here you can really hear the chorus. Yeah, that's how you destroy your own voice. Then came the pianos. The piano is true pianos, which is amazing. Piano as itself, so it doesn't really need much of tweaking. And a guitar, which is, well, a very loose term for it. It's a Sakura. The most important part was to actually make the velocity work, so it kind of sounds more real. And then some tweaking to this preset. So, as you have noticed, I haven't really talked much about the percussions and stuff like that. That is because there's actually not that much of them. The main part has basic hi-hat. Very quiet supporting hi-hat, kind of adding more speed, and then a clap. No, sorry, snare. So two different snares. They are also panned. But when you combine together, it's great. Yeah. So that's that. Then we have a clapper. This is kind of... because the kick alone kind of isn't cool enough, so I have a clap going clack, 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 clack. And then there's also very... well, now it's noticeable, but once it's in the middle of everything, it's kind of... the reverb slap is not noticeable that much. So then we have them, it's like this. Again, it kind of... this hi-hat drowns out the slapper. But yeah. Then we have... once we switch to the second chorus part, we have a ride. Might actually be two rides. Yes, it is. Which are again... wait, no, they're not. Okay, they're not panned. Interesting. Okay. But as you can see, it's very basic. And during the singing parts, there's a little bit of difference. There's again the same going, but then we have a clap. Yeah. That's because it's kind of... well, it gives a drive. And then we have another very quiet offbeat hi-hat. This is the main part again. Yeah, that's that. It's really not strange. Then came my biggest weakness, which is the risers and stuff like that. Also, what you can see is some automation going on through the song. But then more of it comes down here. I did do one custom riser. It's just a very long kept note, which kind of takes a long while to come in. Here we go. This is done by creating a super long attack and then a bit shorter attack for the pitches, but still long. But this was like tweaking it until it hit the correct point at the correct time. But for the rest of them, well, for the lift, also there are the snares. There's the neat little thing is that they are kind of off beat. Like it's a bit earlier, and then this is a bit more early, which kind of makes this sweet little... it's not just a smooth, it kind of gives it that little extra edge. Yeah, there's not much more to that. As you can see here, there are many samples that I have used for the risers and stuff like that. We take them. It's like sampled city. Some crashes and stuff like that. But really, I don't want to do them myself mostly. So yeah, just find a good sample. As for the percussions, actually, you may have noticed when I click through them over here. I'm not using my glasses, so I don't actually see this far. But yeah, there's not really many effects. I have done the cutting into Mixer EQ actually, but otherwise there's nothing going on. That is because I try to find samples that are good enough so I don't have to do effecting for them. Sometimes I add some compressor, but mostly it kind of works against the flow and kind of sounds actually worse than where I started from. So instead I try to keep them as dry as possible. So I guess that's pretty much everything for the laying of the parts. Some neat tricks are these actually. It's a break sample, which has a fruit flangus to make the flanger sound, and then we play it from here. It's a great feel. I use it in a couple of places. Like that here, so wow, this is killing my machine right now. Another trick here is when I do the lift. There's quite a few things going on. One is that I use crossbeat to stop the main lead and maybe some other lead, which is this. It's a normal stop and then a volume control. But I also have effector to stop the lead. So it kind of repeats quickly. Then there's also the volcano, which is to fade out the tops. And then in the bells, if we take you and you, that's actually, there was a preset bank in Reddit. These are meant for, what is it, the future house? Is it called that? I guess it is. It's it's meant for that, so obviously I don't do future house or future bass, and instead I used one of those crossbeat effects in here. I tweaked it a little to make it kind of sound dumb, because who wants to be serious? So that is playing in the background of the kind of combining feel. That's again like one snare that is going down, made the last hit a bit less obvious. Then there's a bass tom. And electro click, which goes up, and then a final slap, big slap at the end. But because that doesn't have, I mean, that doesn't quite glue it together, we also add a sub bass sweep to the end. Ooh. So that makes it amazing, and kind of this works very well when it comes just before of the actual kick, and then as you can see it's cut a bit earlier before the actual kick, so it doesn't blend with the actual kick, so we get the crisp change. Now it's kind of the computer is dying, so it doesn't sound that good, but you get the point. Rest is really pretty much just about controlling some filters, and I guess that's about that. So that was the layout part of the song making. Next comes mixing, but that is actually fun thing with my way, is that I do the mixing while doing the composing. As you can see in my mixer, I have all of the volumes already kind of where I want them. So I really do that all of the time. I don't leave it at the end. Every time when I add something, I kind of think, where does this fit? And then if I add something else, I think, where does this fit? Do I need to change something else so that they fit? It kind of makes it so that my composing time takes very long time. But that's also because I kind of get hyped by my own songs, so I just keep on listening to them, which is not good, but yeah. Anyway, I have probably used days of just listening to this. Yeah, and then this part is like, yeah. But the good part about this is that if you do it while making to the composing part, you don't actually have to do it in the mixing part. Actually, here what you see is levels, which is I use it to compare the mono stereo. And well, now I'm using limiter, but it's simply for this recording. I normally don't use it anymore, just to be safe, so that I don't kill some sounds that I don't want. Once this all of the composing is done, I'm happy with the structure and everything that is in here. I render it. Okay, unfortunately you won't see this menu. I don't know why OBS won't show it, but what I do is to export the file as wave, but an important setup is to, in the miscellaneous part, is to split mixer tracks, which essentially it records all of your tracks over here. Everything that is playing in there, it records them, renders them separately. And once that is done, I go to a new project. Okay, so once I have all of the parts rendered, I pull them in, and that is pretty much it. One thing I did change at this point was that I removed some of the bells from the main climaxes because I thought they didn't really sound that much, and instead of giving them any space, I decided to just cut them away. But after that, you can see there's just a small volume change, but other than that, there's nothing really. I did boost the kick and the bass in the end. The peak controllers are for the video, but otherwise there are some EQs. Here's one for the bass to cut some of the lows off because they were not working very well in the mastering phase. This is an effect EQ. Because of some of the filtering, there were some nasty peaks in the kind of top mid area, so I got them away during those filters. For the source, I add a limiter or a compressor, which just to control some of the transients. But then the next thing is in some of the lines there are these doublers, which are made to kind of give some width and air to the top end of some of the sounds. And then I worked on some of the drops and those samples to cut some of the lows away. Then, since this was all done, it was all up to mastering. And mastering was easy. I'm not going to turn them on because that's going to kill everything. But there's essentially what I did was, because everything was mixed properly, I just did a pretty balance, which I pulled down by 7 dB, which is pretty much the same as if you went through all of these and separately put them down by 7. It's like, why would you do that when you can work through the mixing early and then just take everything down by this? Next up is the final EQ, which boosts some of the most important frequencies. After that is a compressor. Well, this is something that you just have to look a good tutorial from online and try to learn them. With this one, it's like longish attack, short release, small ratio, and then threshold, so that it kind of takes off some of the biggest peaks away, and then you just make it up, make it louder. Then an important thing is this L3 multi-maximizer. There are many ways in doing this. Earlier I have used T-Rex, but now I decided to go for L3, which I guess is the professional way of doing it. So some of the biggest things with this is to take the threshold down, which squashes the sound, and then I put -3 in the out of ceiling just to prevent possible clipping, just in case. And after that, it was changed. I changed the priorities of the bass, the low mid, and then the mid area with the lead, cutting some of the highs, so it kind of, because again, I don't need the percussions that much. And then when you have all of those and some proper dithering, I worked a little bit with these release times, and that is the magic done. Once you have those, you just render it to wave file and everything is done. So I guess some of you followed through this whole video. If you did, thank you for listening. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from it. And I hope I will see you in the next something video I will be doing, hopefully. This was insane and a very deep look into the project. Bye bye.